Some of us call ourselves witches or witches. Some of us call ourselves pagans, philosophers, humanists, or simply spiritual people. Others identify as goddess worshippers or nature honorers. Do labels matter? Sometimes they do. Sometimes we need a label to finally make sense of what we believe. This analogy collects the first-hand experiences of real people as they discover, explore, and walk in their pagan paths. Whatever the word they have chosen to use to identify their spiritual choices, every single one of them is a regular, everyday person who has dealt with the pressure of self-identification, then identification within a larger community, be it family, the workplace, or the public in general. For most, the very first step of admitting to themselves they are pagans is the hardest. In other words, candidly defining what they felt, dictating themselves, or acknowledging in some way that this path, this faith, the spiritual way was their own, was the most difficult part. In effect, they came out of the broom closet to themselves. For some, once that first unveiling was complete, there was joy. For others, there was then a different kind of coming out required. To those around them, not everyone in this analogy has chosen to publicly identify him or herself as a follower of an alternative spiritual path. For some, it isn't important. They consider spirituality a private and personal thing. Others identify themselves as pagans only to other pagans. Still, others openly wear their religious symbols and demand time off for their holidays and festivals. Everyone's choice is different, as it should be. There are people whose stories talk about how they are comfortable with operating within two religions at once, one in their hearts and the other socially. As Ois puts it, I hope I spelled that right. I hope I pronounced that right. For those who like to correct me, the spelling is Oisce. Ois. As Ois puts it, I believe that all gods are one God. I do not lie when I pray in the words of another religion because I believe. It is imperative to understand that every single contributor, I love that funny word, here, and every single reader that defines and deals with their spirituality in their own way. Taras Stasuk, hope I didn't destroy that pronunciation, Stasiuk, clearly outlines that your questions and your answers are what count, not accommodating someone else's definitions and standards. For some, outlining the differences is what defines their path. For others, it is connecting to similarities. There is a very wide range of paths and experiences illustrated in this book. Some of the names you might recognize, many you will not. Some people practice a very defined path, others are more free form. Different paths complement different lives. Different avenues and practices provide the spiritual nourishment of each of us seeks. Despite the differences in paths and experiences, there are several common themes that surface again and again throughout these stories. One is the use of books to access or further knowledge. People read books and discover the existence of modern paganism or read in order to research this new spirituality to which they've been introduced in some way. These books aren't necessarily classifiable as New Age either. Some read fiction or mythology or history texts and start to wonder if there's a modern analog. Another common theme is the archetypal coming home sensation. After feeling out of sync, the practitioner discovers paganism and feels as if it is what he or she has been looking for, or experiences a sense of comfort and belonging. Some people, such as Brenda Gibson, experience something moving and only later identify what the experience was. Siri Young explains this feeling of coming home as being the relief of finally putting a name to all the different pieces of the puzzle that slowly collect throughout your life. There are some unhappy commonalities as well. Some of the people in this anthology experience brutal discrimination for their differences, sometimes physical violence, sometimes social discrimination. Some people have been disowned by their families due to their choices or actions deriving from those choices. They remain true to their personal choices while mourning their losses. Sometimes the resistance or discrimination isn't from the non-pagan community, but from within the pagan community itself. Siri Dwayne Johnson writes about the prejudice she encounters from other Wiccans and pagans when she reveals that she is Gardnerian. Blade writes about techno-paganism, his preferred spiritual focus, and the resistance to the concept he has encountered within the pagan community. Okay, that was tough. I got it out though. Some of the contributors found their spirituality expressed in unexpected parallel paths, such as science and philosophy. Sometimes the challenges aren't in the form of social or family resistance, but in the form of how you define spiritual practice and how you reconcile it to your expectation of what constitutes a spiritual life. People like Brendan Myers and Tara Statsuk think and reason about aspects of their paths, concluding that the path they've each on is the answer is for them unique individuals. Okay, let's reread that part. People like Brendan Myers and Tara Stasuk think and reason about aspects of their paths, concluding that the path they're each on is the answer for them as unique individuals. Several community leaders share their experiences here. Gina Ellis weaves her observations of the evolution of the public perception of and response to Wicca in Canada into a personal account of her journey along her pagan path. Amanda Hyde talks about her community organization. She led her to make contacts and act as a representative of the pagan community in several different locations. It's a treat to see how these leaders present themselves, for it thanks to people like them that alternative spirituality has become as widely accepted as it has today. Without them, this anthology wouldn't exist. We are deeply in debt to the groundbreakers and the ambassadors of our community, those who have gone before and those who will still work to educate. Many underline the fact that their faith is their own personal business. There's no need for them to point out what they are to everyone they meet. Others live lives that require them to wear their spirituality on their sleeves. Shop owners, authors, celebrants, clergy, or teachers. There is no right or wrong way to live. Being out of the closet doesn't mean yelling about what you are from the rooftops. It means not actively hiding what it is that you believe. How far each of us is comfortable with sharing that information depends on our lifestyles, our personalities, and our social environments. For example, Ois is a pagan author who publishes under her own name, but who is still relatively unknown in her home community. She is technically out of the closet, but hasn't made a point of bringing it to the attention of those around her because she respects them as well as her own beliefs. It's not just about me, she writes, and she writes. A decision to come out of the broom closet, either selectively or fully, affects not only the individual who walks a pagan path, but those around him or her as well. Choosing who to reveal your beliefs and your spirituality to can be so challenging. And again, there are no right answers. Each of us must weigh the consequences to choose accordingly. Many of the contributors I spoke to commented. Sorry, let's start that over. Many of the contributors I spoke to commented on how deeply revealing working on these stories was for them. It forced them to examine the origins of their faith, to evaluate how they have changed, and to put it into words, nebulous concepts, and feelings. It's been a life-changing experience for me as well, as I've read through the stories of deep emotional impact and see what people have lived through what they're still living through. The challenges, the transitions, the pride with which, not the witch with the hat, which they move past obstacles, the pain with which they move through their lives forever altered by prejudice or rejection. The strength contained within these stories touches me deeply, and I know it will move you as you read them too, as I read them to you. We all can hope for a day when spirituality isn't a decisive thing, when our actions and the way we live our lives say more about us than the word that tags our faith. Fortunately, many people in this collection point out that their journeys are still ongoing, that they've encountered fresh challenges and new things to learn every day. Coming out, whether to oneself or to one's family or friends, is only the beginning. With every experience, we must reevaluate, integrate, and start anew. It is one of the blessings of our chosen spiritual path as part of our ongoing relationship with the divine. Aaron Murphy Hiscock, Vernal Equinox, 2009. That was the introduction from Out of the Broom Closet. This is a beautiful little book with 50 true stories of witches who found and embraced the craft. I think this has got to be one of the coolest books. A little about the editor. Aaron Murphy Hiscock is the author of The Way of the Hedge Witch, The Way of the Green Witch, Power Spellcraft for Life, The Celerity Wit, The Solitary Wicca for Life, A High Priestess Within the Black Forest Clan. Ooh, that sounds good. She has been active in the New Age community since the mid-90s. Okay. She lives in Montreal, Canada. How do you tell your mother you're a witch? Coming out as a witch isn't easy. You may feel misunderstood, rejected, even discriminated against by friends, family, and co-workers. If you haven't come out, you may be leery of criticism from those who don't really know what it means to be a witch. In this one-of-a-kind collection, you'll meet 50 witches just like you who reveal what drew them to the craft and how they dealt with coming out of the broom closet. Inside, you'll find inspiring stories. Empowered by my faith. Yes, we are working professionals. I am pagan and I am proud. And exercise intolerance. These are just some of the stories. There's little excerpts in there, but I'm not going to give that away. She says, Out of the Broom Closet will give you the encouragement and inspiration you need to practice magic with pride and dignity, no matter where you are on your path. There you go. And that's just the beginning. Stay tuned for chapter 1. Thank you.